Hello everyone, welcome to our Planolution channel. I'm Mish.
I'm Blues.
I'm Mastodon.
And I'm Rocco.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the second Planolution lore video ever, where we will be talking about the stories behind the planets and cards of Set 2.
Let's start by talking about Maloop.
A planet torn by constant conflict and everlasting rivalries. A planet full of life, but also filled with souls, forever trapped.
Maloop consists of 4 major parts: the floating islands, which dominate the skies, the scorching hot volcanic field, the shallow seas, and the mountainous valley. These zones on Maloop are dominated by 4 major tribes: the bears, the insects, the snails, and the dinosaurs. Each tribe is spread out between all these different environments. The water-dwelling species in each tribe occupy the seas, the flying creatures live in the floating islands, the creatures accustomed to heat live in the volcanic fields, and those that climb live in the mountains.
Each tribe is in constant competition for land and resources and are willing to form temporary alliances with other tribes to succeed in their pursuits. Over time, however, some tribes have grown to distrust one another from past experience. The distrust is between the bears and snails and between the insects and dinosaurs.
The story goes that once upon a time, the tribes lived in peace and harmony, unified and prosperous, until an insect accidentally stepped on a dinosaur, and then it all went downhill from there.
But land and resources aren't the only causes of conflict amongst the tribes of Maloop. There is one other thing, an artifact of great power and importance.
There is a tree in the center of Maloop, growing atop an obsidian island. It is said that every 100 years, a cycle begins with a blossoming of a single leaf upon this tree. A leaf that shines with unnatural power. After this leaf has grown, earthquakes begin to shake the land, and temperatures drop with each day that passes. It is the shuddering of the world turtle as its energy is depleted and it grows hungry.
The turtle must be fed, and each member of every tribe is willing to give up its life to secure its tribe the honor of feeding the great turtle. The only thing that can sustain a creature the size of a planet is this very artifact which grows upon Maloop's tree, the leaf. The creatures of Maloop believe a blessing befalls the tribe that feeds the turtle the leaf, letting it prosper with the next 100 years, until the next war for the leaf begins and another tribe takes this blessing.
The cycle continues on forever, as these battles for the leaf are the very thing that gives it power. Below the surface of this obsidian isle is a lake. It is not any ordinary lake, however, but a lake made of gloop. Gloop is a strange substance with the strange ability that can trap souls. These souls give gloop mysterious powers. The roots of the tree upon which the leaf grows reach into the lake of the gloop, and the gloop transfers its power to the tree.
The powers of the souls trapped in the gloop do not last forever, and new souls are needed to sustain the gloop's abilities and in turn, this tree's eternal life and its power. And the war for the Urleaf is the perfect thing to provide new souls for the gloop. The gloop absorbs the new souls each time, and the tree keeps on living. This is the cycle of the leaf.
But this lake below the tree is not the only place where gloop can be found. Mysterious relics of mining operations can be found around Maloop, digging deep below its surface, all of them in search of gloop. It's unknown who or what left these relics, or why they needed gloop at all. But like on Terraro, these relics seem to hint at an ancient civilization.
Now, let's talk about Planet Equotion.
Planet Equotion, as a matter of fact, didn't start off as a ring of water with an extremely thick atmosphere. Our story starts thousands of years back, for when Vulcan was still similar to Terraro. For those of you who haven't watched the first Planolution lore video, Planet Vulcan is a fiery and volcanic planet, though it was once green with many hills and mountains, and thriving with life.
The reason for planet Vulcan's staggering transformation is primarily a huge mountain that is on it. The mountain was formed when 2 of Vulcan's tectonic plates collided and began to push rock and soil upwards. Over time, the pile of rock grew larger and larger. This huge mountain atop the planet unbalanced Vulcan's center of gravity and shifted its orbit ever so slightly.
The shift in its orbit sent Vulcan on a path far too close to the star it orbits, and as it got pulled closer to its star, the planet began to heat up. Eventually, the planet became too warm for water to exist in its liquid state, and it began to all evaporate. The water on Vulcan eventually all drifted off into space, floating farther and farther away. If you want to learn more about Vulcan's lore, however, you should check out the first lore video. The link will be in the description below.
Now, let's get back to the water vapor that is currently drifting through space. As the vapor floated farther from the sun, it began to freeze. Drawn in by its own gravity, the chunks of ice began to get closer and closer together, until finally, they merged into a ball of ice.
For 1,000 years, this ball of ice continued drifting through space until it was drawn into an orbit by a star. The star was rather small. Its gravity didn't draw the early quotient in very close, creating an orbit hundreds of millions of miles from its new star. The new warmth, however, little there was of it, that reached the ice ball from the star warmed it up slightly, melting the inside of the ball of ice and creating a vast sea inside a crust of ice.
Though the environment in the sea was harsh, some microorganisms were strong enough to form and survive. The most relevant from among them is a diatom. Diatoms were tiny creatures that fed off the mineral-rich water of aquocean and, as a byproduct, created oxygen. Diatoms, unrivaled, began to multiply exponentially. They continued to eat up minerals from the water, eventually creating an atmosphere of almost completely oxygen. Though some other microorganisms did add some other gases into the mix. The dominance of these microorganisms faltered when larger creatures began to appear and eat them up, however.
The air created by these microorganisms formed an extremely dense atmosphere, so dense with oxygen, in fact, that at the ice's surface it was too thick for any animal to survive there. As years went by, microorganisms began to form in this atmosphere, not near the ice, however, but high up in the sky. They began to develop into flying creatures that avoid the thickest part of the atmosphere near the ice's surface by flying above it.
Over time, both marine and flying species continued to evolve into bigger and more complex animals. The skies filled up with both small and large creatures alike, as the atmosphere was thick enough for even the largest of creatures with wings to be able to fly.
More time went by, and some comets were drawn in by aquocean's gravity, orbiting it and melting because of the friction caused by the atmosphere, creating a ring of flowing water around the icy core. Eventually, marine species began to develop in this ring of water too. The water from these comets, like the water in the core, was also very mineral-rich, and plants could grow in it by just feeding off of the water's minerals. With the development of creatures and plants in the ring, the story of aquocean has come to a close.
We really hope that you have enjoyed this lore video and found these stories interesting. If you did, please consider subscribing. It helps us a ton, and we greatly appreciate it if you would take a moment to click the subscribe button. Once again, thank you for watching this video, and
goodbye.